Hello, everyone. My name is Nikki, your host to the Power Label Summit. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm going to teach you how to step into your own power, free yourself from expectations, and live the life you always wanted. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Kim Strobel. You're going to be blown away. She is for the joy seekers, the go-getters, the real messy women, because let's be honest, no one's life is perfect. And for women who want so much more in their lives, she's a nationally recognized speaker and happiness coach. Kim is all about empowering others to live bigger, bolder, and braver lives. When she's not rescuing dogs or downing a McDonald's Diet Coke, Kim's contagious high energy style has the unique ability to embolden her audiences. Motivational, inspirational, and always approachable, Kim's real talk attitude is a refreshing approach that authentically connects with hearts and humans everywhere. I'm so excited to have you here, Kim. I would love for you to introduce yourself to the audience and just tell us a little bit more.
Well, I am a huge dog rescuer. I have to tell you all, I just recently rescued our 112th dog. So we've rescued 112 dogs in the last 20 years, and I just have this huge heart for animals. And so most recently, this was a stray beach dog that we met the first week of March when my husband and I were traveling and vacationing in Cancun. And so her name is Luna, and she, after 6 months, she finally made it here last week. So yes, to the rescuing of dogs. And so she is fitting into our family really well. But yeah, so there's a whole backstory. Sometimes I think that people, I get introduced as a happiness coach, and it's like, oh, she must be like sunshine and sprinkles and, unicorns. And I'm like, oh no, I mean, I have a happy demeanor for sure. I wake up every day excited to live my life, but my becoming a happiness coach was actually born out of my own trauma and my own struggles. And so for me, I first went to college and I got a degree in education, and I was a school teacher. And I loved that. I loved, influencing little bitty lives every day. And then I went on to become a curriculum director, which I really liked that as well, because I was very interested in how can we create curriculum that really helps students succeed. And then I think it was in 2015, I told my husband that I have this idea that I want to launch my education consulting business called Strobel Education. And I want to become a motivational speaker and travel the country and really work on empowering teachers, because they are the ones who then get to influence their students. And my husband is very, he's very grounded. He worked at the same job for 29 years, and he was kind of like, what? Like, what makes you think you can do this? And you have this really great paycheck every 2 weeks, and you want to just like start your own business because you think people might want to hire you, like he believed in me, but he was like, this sounds really crazy. But I just kind of inherently knew that I was supposed to become a speaker and really empower others to live their best life. And so I launched it in January of 2016. I went full time. And then within a year, I became a nationally recognized motivational speaker. So what happened though is that I actually had an even bigger dream behind that dream. And that is that for the last 20 years, Nikki, I have studied the topic of happiness. And again, I studied it because it was really born out of my own darkness and my own trauma. And I'm happy to talk about that if you want to know what that story is. But many times it's our adversity and our challenges and kind of the mess of our lives that becomes our mission in life. I don't know if you feel that way, but that's how I feel.
Thank you for being so vulnerable. And I want to say, I definitely want to hear that story, because for me personally, I too have not had the smoothest of roads down this path to do what I do today. It was through that darkness. And for me, it was just, living life thinking that I had no other options, that I was being controlled by the environment around me, people telling me what your dreams are don't matter, because you're not going to make money. So you should go to school and study management, study business, become a lawyer, become a doctor, become someone influential in a profession that is widely known so that you can live a good life. And so long, I have tried to be the donut pretending to be a hamburger. And sorry, that reference
I
is
love
out
that.
of
No, that's
whack.
perfect. I love it. That's a great analogy.
And it was every day I kind of felt out of touch. I felt so unsure of what I'm doing. I felt really unhappy most of the times. Like I put on a fake smile for people and I said, yeah, life is fantastic, life is great, when deep down I really didn't feel that way. I felt alienated. I felt like I couldn't be creative. I couldn't smile because no one else around me was smiling. And I'd love to hear more about you, like if that was something similar that you've experienced in your journey.
Yeah, well, I actually have two directions to take your question. And so I think the first one, before I actually explain what my struggle was, is that I definitely feel that, especially the generation who is entering college, or, well, it probably applies to all generations, but the bottom line is we are all told to kind of fit in this box. And even in our education system, we're kind of put through like an assembly line, and we say, hey, these are the skills that you need to be successful. And I don't know how much you know about the brain, but the brain has two hemispheres, and you have the left hemisphere of the brain, which is all academic, right? So if you're a really strong left brainer, then you love mathematical computations, you love logical sequences, you love algorithms, you can read, write, understand, memorize, and regurgitate information. And so the left side of the brain is really like all the academics, and it's everything that we're taught in school. But the right side of the brain is like creativity and empathy and feeling and holistic thinking and artistic ability and all of these things. And the problem is that we all kind of go through life and we're told from our school and from our family and from our community that if you want to be successful, this is the one path that everybody follows, which is you better hope you're a strong left brainer so that you're smart in school. And then you want to go to college and you want to get a degree. And hopefully you choose a degree that you make a lot of money, because if you make a lot of money, you can keep climbing the corporate ladder and making more money. And on the other side of all of that wonderful money making, and you get the big house and you have the nice car and you get married because you're supposed to get married and you're supposed to have children. When you finally get all of those things, you will be happy. And so there's a lot of issues with that formula, because what we know is that academic intelligence is just one type of intelligence. And so there's so many people, I think, who go through our school systems and they tell themselves, I'm not smart, or I don't have what it takes, or I don't compare to, the smart kids. And what we actually know from Daniel Goleman's research is that IQ, which is one type of intelligence, only has 4 to 10% to do with a person's career success. 4 to 10% is IQ. And so, like, for example, I went to school with a guy who despised school. He was not a good reader. He was not an excellent mathematician. He never took calculus or AP classes, but he runs a multi-million dollar electrical company that he created, and he runs a multi-million dollar solar panel division company. And I think my reason for telling this story is that so much of the time we don't believe in our own potential, because we've had people in our environment and our school systems tell us that we all need to fit in this one box. And if you place yourself in that box and you do all of these things, that you will eventually arrive at happiness. And what we actually know is that that formula is completely backwards. We actually know that when you put your own happiness and your own passion at the forefront, your own dreams, that it is that comes first that changes every other outcome in your life. So for me personally, I was trying to do the right thing. I got my college degree, which I think I am the type of person who would get a college degree regardless. And I went into teaching, and I really loved teaching, but there was always like this deeper calling. And I tried to tell myself, like, what's wrong with you, Kim? Why can't you just be content? Why do you have to go from being a teacher to being a literacy coordinator? Then you need to be a curriculum director. Now you want to launch your own business. Why can't you be like your husband, who is content to work the same job for 29 years? Like, there must be something wrong with you, because it's never good enough. And there's so many people who would love to be doing like the curriculum director's job. Like, that's an amazing job, Kim. Why is that not lighting you up? And what I have learned, Nikki, is that God made us all differently. We all have different types of intelligence. Some of us are super creative. We're huge right brainers. It doesn't mean we're less than the person who goes on to become the software engineer or the attorney or the doctor. Like, in fact, what we know is when you follow that thing that lights you up, it becomes a game changer in your life. And so there are certain people who can be content to do the same job, like my husband. And then there's those of us who are a little wilder at heart, like me. And so I was really trying to fit the mold, and not just like in the profession space, but also like, who was Kim Strobel supposed to be if she was this professional human being? And what I found is that I kept losing little pieces of my soul. And I tried to be who society and everybody else told me I should be. And that left me feeling depressed, really. And it wasn't like how my soul wanted to show up.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Kim. That's something that I relate to very well, and like you said, that a lot of people we try to fit in because that's what society says that we're supposed to do, right? Like, oh, you're supposed to be that next person standing in line, fitting that mold, going down this road and being happy with what you're told to be happy about. And it's the disconnect between the brain, the body, and the soul, and just everything that your energy holds, that creates this sense of not fitting in, the sense of like there's something wrong out there. And one of my biggest questions for you is like, I know life is so messy. Even when we're trying to figure out who we are, it's so difficult to kind of break away from the society that keeps telling us like, oh no, you have to be this way. What are some tips and tricks that really helped you to discover that? Like, what made you say, you know what, I'm not putting up with this anymore, and I'm not going to listen to these voices that other people put inside my head. I'm going to trust my intuition. And what are some of those steps that you took to get out there?
Well, that's a great question. And I love that you use the word intuition, because I think that we all have these whispers in our life, and they get stronger or we smash them down. And, for me personally, I think the reason that I can be so big and so bold with my actions is because I have had to play small many times in my life. And so, like, going back to why I became a happiness coach, I actually suffered from a severe anxiety disorder called panic disorder. And I was always a very kind of anxious kid growing up. I mean, I was normal, and I was a great athlete and played sports and had great friends, but I was always more of an anxious personality. And so my sophomore year of high school, I started having these intense episodes that would come on within like a second. I would be sitting in class and the walls would feel like they were caving in. I would feel like I was going to lose consciousness. My body would shake all over. My heart would pound out of its chest. And so this was back in like the 80s and early 90s. And so we didn't know a lot about anxiety disorders. We didn't know what was going on with me. And so what happened is I started to have these episodes and they increased over time. And so the best way that I can describe what we now know is a panic attack. So I did not get diagnosed with this disorder until I was, I'd gone to college. I had quit after a year because I was having these intense episodes. I really thought I was crazy. I didn't understand why I couldn't function like normal people. I struggled to walk to my mailbox. I struggled to drive 5 minutes to Walmart. I struggled to go in Walmart. Like, what happened was I started to have these episodes on and off all day long, and they caused extreme fear in me. And the only way I knew to somewhat control them was to just keep putting up walls in my life. So like, it's no longer safe to drive an hour away. Then all of a sudden it's no longer safe to drive 10 minutes away. Then it's no longer safe to walk to your mailbox. And so what you do is you try to not put yourself in those situations. But then I became agoraphobic, which was I was fearful of being alone. I was fearful of going any place by myself. And I was like 22 years old. And so for people who don't really understand what a panic attack is, the best way that I can describe it is if I were to put you on a train track and a train would be coming at you at like 300 miles per hour. And I would tell you that you are not allowed to step off of the train track, but that you are 100% safe because the train is going to stop 1 inch before it hits your nose. So if you can imagine being on that train track and having this train come at you and how you would feel, like the most intense feelings of absolute terror, okay? And that would be enough to do a person in for their lifetime. So for somebody like me, I have those intense feelings of terror. But the problem is that my brain cannot attach the reason why. So like, it would be understandable if you were almost hit by a car or a train, or if somebody had a knife to your neck, your brain could say, oh, this is why I feel this way. I almost was killed. But for somebody like me, my brain has nothing to attach it to. So then it starts to think, you're crazy, you're inadequate, you're completely broken, you're weak. What's wrong with you? You're 23 years old, Kim, and 2-year-olds can function better than you can at Walmart. 2-year-olds can go around the aisle away from their mommy, and you're constantly looking to make sure that your husband's right next to you in case you would have one of these episodes. And so for me, that completely changed the trajectory of my life, because I had like this independent, fiery soul. And then I had this limitation that made me lose all of my confidence for years and made me feel like I belonged in a psychiatric institution. And so I literally had that bathroom moment when I was like 22 or 23. My husband at the time had left for the day to go to work, and that always caused about 15 minutes of anxiety before, I would get in my car and try to drive to work. And I really did. And it gets me emotional just to think about it. But like, I remember laying on my bath mat in my bathroom. It was a forest green bath mat. And I really pleaded with God to just, take my life. Because every 5 minutes of my day was difficult, and I just didn't understand what was wrong with me. And I remember just laying there and saying, I can't kill myself. I don't know how, and I don't, whatever. I don't think I have that in me, but I'm asking you to take my life. And I also kind of heard like another voice, and I don't know if I actually heard it or felt it, but there was something that spoke to me that basically said, Kim, this is not the end, and you're made to do more. So get up off that bath mat and start start advocating for your life. And that's really how it started. I ended up going to my general practitioner who happened to know about anxiety disorders. He explained what it was. He put me on Zoloft. I went to cognitive behavioral therapy for years to learn how to teach my brain that it was safe. And then the third thing I did was I went all in the self-help field because I was determined that I was going to create my life from the inside out. And really, Nikki, that's a long story, but like that's the story of the birthing of the happiness coach, is that I have experienced this extreme trauma in my life. And I'll be honest with you, I still sometimes have this struggle. You know, I mean, I can be the badass woman who steps on the stage with 2,000 people in the crowd. And, you think to yourself, oh my gosh, she's the girl who couldn't walk to her mailbox. She couldn't go to Walmart. And now she steps on a stage. But to me, Nikki, that's also a testament that we have no idea what we're capable of, because we base our ability to thrive sometimes on our current circumstances, when in fact, I chose that day to no longer be the victim of my story and instead to be the warrior, to rise up and say, I'm going to take 100% responsibility for my life.
I absolutely love that so much, Kim. I applaud you. And I just want to say that no matter who out there is listening, no matter what your age is, we all go through it. And it just doesn't, it's not something that stops, but you can try to learn how to cope with it and control your reactions to certain situations. And for me, it's very similar. Sometimes I would say, like, I feel so powerful sometimes, I feel so good driving in my car, listening to music, feeling like the world is beneath me, like I'm on top, I'm fantastic. And then the very next day, I will literally be shaking and saying, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to survive tomorrow? Even coming on this interview, I was so excited to have you. I'm getting all these fantastic speakers to share their story, to give back to the world. And it's such an amazing gift to be able to give that to somebody else. But then sometimes I step back and I question myself and I say, am I really worthy of having such wonderful, accomplished speakers standing beside me and sharing their message and sharing my story? I'm just one person. And then I think back, like, everyone is just one person. But when we come together, that's when magic happens. That's when amazing things happen. And it doesn't matter if you're just one person out there and you may be scared, and that's completely normal. Fear will always be there. Difficulties will always be there. But the most important thing is remembering we're all human. Like, I connected with Kim so well because I understand her pain. And I'm so grateful for her to be here with me today and for her to understand where I come from and say, like, I understand where you come from too. And there's so many people out there who are struggling, and that's okay. Like, that is okay. There are ways that you can find help and conquer life and feel like that amazing, powerful being that you were meant to be, that there's other options out there. So that is so fantastic, Kim.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I was buried in my shame around it for a long time. I mean, we all carry shame, and we all have, that's the other thing too, is that we don't have to measure someone else's trauma against our own. Sometimes we do that thing where we do that comparative suffering and we say, well, I'm not allowed to feel the way I do because somebody else has it so much worse than me. But it's about you and what you've experienced and how you're feeling. And we don't have to compare it to others. But, You know, I actually had a really bad relapse in 2018 of my panic disorder. I had struggled like a little bit here and there throughout the years, but and I've always worked on myself, but in 2018, when I was actually, I was creating the happiness course. So of all things, the happiness coach was creating the first ever happiness course. And I was running my Strobel education business full time. And then I had launched my second business, Kim Strobel, the happiness coach, and I was working that full time. And so I had a terrible relapse that took me almost all the way back to where I was 25 years ago when I couldn't leave my house. And I had to revisit all my tools and strategies. And of course, I have a new set of skills that I didn't have back then. So I was able to come through it quicker. But you know, Nikki, one of the things that I think perhaps was part of the purpose for me re-experiencing that, because let me tell you what, I was pissed as hell. I was like, God, are you kidding me? Like, I've been to hell and back. Like, my life was horrible. And why are you, I'm doing so much good now with my story and my message. Why are you taking me back to this? How have I gone back to having all of this happen again? And I now look back and I think that part of the coping mechanism, Nikki, that I have used is that I have really despised those things in my life. Like, to me, that part of Kim, she was weak and feeble and flawed and broken. And and I was really hard on her. Like, I despised that part of myself. Like, and the way that I coped with it was like, oh, I'm going to show you what a badass I am. I'm going to work my ass off. I'm going to be this fierce woman who is severely driven and severely ambitious, because I really wanted to take those vulnerabilities that I had and like just keep kind of smashing them down. And my learning in this, Nikki, is that I can love the fierce badass that I am, but I can also love and accept the Kim who struggles sometimes. And so now when I walk on a stage, like I did last week in Oklahoma, I say to myself, yeah, I walk onto this stage in my great dress and my great heels, and I'm going to rock this crowd. But I'm also bringing the Kim who struggles onto the stage, because she is allowed to be part of my story and who I am. And I need to offer that part of me compassion rather than resistance.
That's amazing. And thank you for sharing that, because as a person who's also striving to do something to kind of say like, hey, you know, I matter too, we kind of forget, or at least I kind of forget, that we have to nurture the other side. And it's such a struggle sometimes to think like, I really, really want to be this powerful leader. I want to show up as somebody who has her ducks in a row, like has everything together. And we kind of push the other side away. And I don't ever think about it until something happens here, where it's like things are not going well. And then I start questioning, like, why are things not going well? I don't understand. And it's because I never resolved the issues that I had pushed into the back of my head. I never even considered, like, maybe you have to come to terms with all the hard things that you've gone through and just love yourself for being such a resilient person, and going through all of those difficult situations. And even now, like, if you want to cry, just cry, right? And I'm here like, I don't want to cry. I don't want people to see me with my tears. And something that has helped me so much was finding a community that provided unconditional love. And every morning we would meet and we would have a discussion, and we would talk about, like, what are some of we call this the itty bitty shitty committee, excuse the language.
I love it.
But
I love it.
it's like, what is your itty bitty shitty committee telling you today? And why is it?
I love it. I'm going to have to steal it. I love it. Itty bitty shitty committee. Who doesn't want to be a part of that?
And it's like, what is showing up for you today in your life? Um, and after talking it out and crying it out, and let me tell you, Kim, I am a crier. I will sit there and I will cry my heart out. But after an hour of doing that and bathing in my emotions, I come out stronger in the other side. So
Yes.
I felt that, you know, and I let it pass through me so that I am aware and I am grateful for all the things that I do have versus the pain that I felt.
Yeah, we have to be able to do that. I think one of the things, so here's what you need to know: how you're feeling as your own entrepreneur and trying to become an influencer. That is like the path of the entrepreneur is not an easy one. I mean, there are months when I'm like running to my husband and I'm like, holy cow, I just got hired by Google to be the keynote speaker. And then like, I'm just blowing it through the roof. And then like 4 weeks later, my husband walks in the office and I'm like curled up in a ball on the floor crying, going, it's never going to work out. And I think it's going to fail and the business is not going, like that is part of it. And I tell that story because even though a lot of your listeners may not be entrepreneurs, here's the thing: we never grow by staying safe. So like if you want to change, if you want to grow, if you want to level up your life, you're going to have to be willing to feel uncomfortable. We have to have those growing pains. And so we break down and we cry, or we doubt ourselves, or we go into doubt and into fear. But you have to go there to come out on the other side. And one of the things I always say is, on the other side of fear is greatness. I mean, when you think about, I was scared to death to give up my stable curriculum job. I was scared to death to walk into Walmart sometimes in my life. But what I know is I have to do the things that are hard if I really want to level up my life. We have to do hard things. It's like, I don't know if you've ever watched a caterpillar try to emerge as a butterfly, but as a school teacher, we used to get these caterpillars and it would be like a 14-day cycle or 28, I can't remember, of watching the butterflies come. And we would watch the caterpillars, they would just, they would claw very little every day. They would try to get out of their cocoon, and it was such a struggle and it was painful to watch. And you would just see them hardly making any headway at all. And so badly, I wanted to take like a little safety pin and make like a little slit in the cocoon, or I wanted to cut the ends off. I wanted to free the butterfly so that I didn't have to watch it keep struggling for like what seemed like no gain whatsoever. But what we know is that if you help the butterfly, if you free it, if you make it easy, the butterfly will literally die within a day, because the butterfly needs the struggle to grow its wings. It has to have the struggle to grow its wings, to become strong. And the same thing is true of human beings. We have to do what is called productive struggle, which is when you're struggling for something greater in your life, but it hurts and it's scary and it's painful and you don't always like it, but you're doing it so that when you do reemerge, that's how I kind of think of my relapse in 2018. I'm going to tell you, I reemerged as a stronger individual. I hated that I had to go through it. And I'm pleading like, I hope I have to never go through that again. But the bottom line is like, life is going to be full of hard things and struggles. But what I have found is that I bounce back a lot quicker than I used to, Nikki, because I know the happiness research. I have happiness habits in my life, and I have a strong track record that says, you know what? Kim Strobel knows how to do hard things.
Can you share some of those happiness
Yeah.
strategies with us? Like, I would
Yeah.
love to hear them.
Yeah. So the happiness research says that we all have what's called a baseline happiness level. So maybe, Nikki, my baseline is here and maybe your baseline is a little bit higher. So what this means is that if you and I go shopping today and we go buy a Kate Spade purse, that our happiness level will go up for a period of time, but it will always go back to the default. So for example, you and I can get the degree and our happiness level might go up. We can get the new job. We can earn more money. We can buy the new house. We can get a new car. We can get a boyfriend or get married, and our happiness level will go up, but for a very short period of time. And what happens is it always returns to baseline. Now, what's really interesting is that the brain research straight out of the University of Pennsylvania, where they've studied this for 50 years, and Harvard University, where they've been studying positive psychology, which is how do we really live a very fulfilled, meaningful life. The research also shows, Nikki, that you and I can endure really terrible things in our life. We can endure loss or grief or disease or illness or breakups or divorce or the loss of a job. And that somehow our brain has this uncanny ability to reset itself after a period of time. And it's kind of hard to wrap our brains around that. But if I ask your audience to look out around them, I'm sure everybody knows someone who's been to hell and back. You know, I think of Elie Wiesel, who spent, a number of years in the Holocaust camp, and he lost his mother and his father and his wife. And Elie Wiesel went on to live this most joy-filled, meaningful life. And so we know that the brain has this ability to always return to baseline eventually. Now, you might be wanting to know, well, where does baseline come from? So if we think of our happiness as a pie chart, then 50% of your long-term happiness, or your baseline, so to speak, it's genetic. It comes from your genetics. Okay. So 50% of your happiness is genetic. It comes from your mom or your dad or a mixture of both. And sometimes when I tell people this, they put their heads down and they're like, I'm so screwed. Right? They're like, oh, my mom is a super depressed person, right? But the thing is, there's a genetic tendency to this. Like, some of us are born into this world and we just handle stress very, very well. We just walk with like this lightheartedness to us. And then there's others of us who like have to work at it. Okay. So 50% is genetic. So for me, like, I have a dad who is just naturally happy. He just is. And then I have the most loving, nurturing mother ever, but her brain picks out everything that's wrong versus everything that's right. It's the way she's genetically wired, but she can change it, okay? She doesn't always choose to change it, but there's things that we can do. So 50% is genetic. Now, here's where the research gets very interesting. If we're thinking of that pie chart, what we know is that only about 10% of your long-term happiness comes from your external circumstances. So what I mean by that is an external circumstance is Kim weighs 150 pounds, Kim weighs 120 pounds. Kim is married, divorced, single, or widowed. Kim lives in a $100,000 home or a $500,000 home. Your external circumstances are everything from how much money you make, what kind of car you drive, what kind of home you live in, what your body looks like, whether you have thick hair, fine hair, like all of that. The science says it only contributes about 10% of your long-term happiness. The problem is, Nikki, we let it eat up way more of that pie. We tell ourselves, if I could just get this job, if I could just lose this weight, if I could just find a partner, if I could just get married, if I could just have children, we tell ourselves those things are what bring us the most happiness. but the brain research says they really do not have a long-term effect on your overall happiness of more than 10%. It's fascinating.
Wow.
It's fast because we're all chasing it. I mean,
Yeah.
I know this research. I've lived it for 20 years and I still think if I could just get the lake house, I'd be happier.
That's so funny. I did not know that. That's really interesting to me. And um, I was just going to say, like, so many people base happiness on material goods.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, we do put so much weight on it. But I have noticed myself too. Like, after I go out and buy myself something that I really wanted, just to be happy for, I don't know, like an hour, 2 hours, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, like I'm back to I'm
And,
back to
and
the way I was.
And here's the thing, Nikki, I teach women how to create wealth. And I'm not going to lie, I'm the girl that went from making $8 an hour to now making $8,000 an hour. And there's nothing wrong. Like, I have a beautiful home. I don't drive the most expensive vehicles because that's just not my thing. I do want to accrue wealth, but it's not that I think that wealth in itself is going to bring me happiness. Like, I know that $1 million home isn't necessarily going to bring me more happiness than a $200,000 home. But there's nothing wrong with wanting to surround yourself with beautiful things. I just ordered a Kate Spade purse. I'm super excited about it. I know that it's not going to bring me long-term happiness, but I think, knowing that those material things are not what bring us happiness, but also not feeling guilty if we want to surround ourselves with beautiful things. The problem is when you depend on those material things to bring you happiness, you will be disappointed every single time.
So would you say, like, what is the one thing that somebody can work on today that they can increase the level of their happiness?
Oh, I'm going to show you, because we've only talked about 60% of the pie, right? 50% is genetic. 10% is your external circumstances. That leaves 40% of the pie. Every human being, regardless of their genetics and regardless of their external circumstances, every human being has the ability to increase their happiness levels by up to 40%, which is what I teach people to do, right? And so I'm not going to have time to give you all of them, but I'm going to give you one of the top 5 ways that you can increase your happiness level. It is such an important one. It takes 2 minutes a day. It's a very simplistic practice. That being said, you have to actually take action and do it. And it's this very simple concept of gratitude. What we know from the brain research is that if you can jot down 3 different things every single day that you're thankful for 21 days, you actually rewire the neural connections in your brain. So let me explain this a minute. So the average human being has about 70,000 thoughts a day. Did you know that? Yeah,
That's incredible.
70,000 thoughts. On top of that, the average human being, 80% of those thoughts are negative. So if you're an average human being, you're probably having 56,000 negative thoughts a day. And the reason you're having those is that we have this back part of the brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala is the brain that 1,000 years ago kept us safe. The amygdala kept us safe because it always scanned its environment and it was like, is there a saber-toothed tiger there? Is there a big storm that's going to wipe out our whole clan? Will we have enough food for the next month? Like, the amygdala, its responsibility was to constantly look for danger so that it could keep you safe. The issue is that we still have the reptilian amygdala today. It's, even though most of us know we're going to have a safe place to sleep tonight, we're going to have food on our table, we're not running from tigers, the amygdala doesn't understand that we now live in an environment where those things are not dangerous. And so our brain is taught to scan for negative until we teach it to do something different. And so in the brain, you have these kind of like what they're called neural pathways. So they're kind of like all of these hundreds and hundreds of like roads in your brain, like a road that you would travel on. And so you know that if you're walking in a field and you travel on this one path over and over again, the path becomes deeper. The path becomes more ingrained. It becomes easier to get through. So in order to change the neural pathway in your brain, you have to create a pathway that is new, that gives it different information. And the easiest way to do that is to literally write down 3 things every single day that you are thankful for. And after 21 days, you have created a new neural feedback loop in your brain, which means you will go throughout your whole day and you'll still see things that are wrong, but many more things that are right will pop out to you. And so I go to TJ Maxx, I get a fun little $3.99, $3.99 journal. And I put the date every day, August 6, 2020, and I write the words, I am thankful, ... And all you have to do is 3. And the brain research says that you do need to actually physically write them down. And personally, I do 10. And I say every day, I probably do it. I'm not as good at doing it on the weekends because I get out of my routine, but I would definitely say, Monday through Friday, I've got my gratitude journal in the morning and I spend time, and these don't have to be profound things. These can be like, the grass is green. I smelled a flower on my run. I watched my dogs play in the living room. Like, they don't have to be big, profound things. But if someone can create that ritual in their life, it will bring to them so much more abundance, and it really will increase their overall happiness level.
I love that. I love that so much. And I've noticed this year when I started doing gratitude tracking as well, I just said, like, thank you so much for my friends, like, thank you for the simple things in life. Like, thank you for my husband for always supporting me, even though I may be crazy sometimes, I drive him crazy sometimes.
Yes. And I have a free gift that's like a gratitude prompt and journal that I can give your audience, if that would be helpful. Did I email that to you, Nikki?
Yes, I'm going to include the link for my audience. So everybody here that's listening, I'm going to include Kim's link to the gratitude and happiness tracker so that you guys have a resource to lean on every single day. Do you want to explain a little bit more about it, Kim?
Yeah, so it just includes like 5 prompts just to kind of get your brain like looking for gratitude in places, because sometimes it's a little hard at first until people get into the rhythm, because they overthink their gratitude. So it has like 5 journal prompts to help you look for gratitude in your life. And then it's a 21-day tracking sheet where you simply write down the 3 different things every day for 21 days. And then, of course, we want you to keep the habit going, because if you want good things to keep happening in your life, you need to keep the habit going. But that would be a really great place just for them to get started.
Thank you so much for your generosity, Kim. And I'm so excited to share this with the audience. I'm going to wrap this up now, and I want to thank the audience for being here. You guys matter. You guys make a difference in this world. And just remember, happiness is it's inside of you already. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I'm so happy to have Kim, and we will see you next time on the next episode. I can't wait. Do you want to say a little something to the audience, Kim?
Yeah. No, it's just a privilege. I'm proud of the work that you're doing, Nikki. I think that this is important to put out into the world. And then I don't know if you're a member, Nikki, but I have a free Facebook group called She Finds Joy. And I show up in there every week and do like little happiness trainings and a lot of inspiration. So that's something that they can just type She Finds Joy, or I can send you the link. And that happens to be the name of my podcast as well. And then on Instagram, I am at Kim Strobel Joy. That's my Instagram handle, at Kim Strobel Joy. So yeah, I think that all of us, have a right to claim our space and our joy in this world.
I'm so happy for you, and I'm so happy that you guys are tuning in. I'm actually going to share all of Kim's connections and links down in the description below this video so that you guys have easier access to join her, listen to her podcast. It's fantastic. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.